Greetings and welcome to episode number 84 of 1000 Evidences for the LDS Church. In this episode, we'll be talking about the origin of the Book of Abraham, and many members of the LDS Church assume that it was translated from a collection of Egyptian scrolls that Joseph Smith acquired from Michael H. Chandler in 1835, who had received them from his uncle Antonio Libolo or Cibolo. However, some critics quote Egyptologists as claiming that those scrolls originated from a much later date than from the time of Abraham. They conclude this based on seeing copies of the Joseph Smith papyri after they were discovered in the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1966. They determined that those were the very fragments that had been in Joseph Smith's possession because they included the lion couch scene, which was copied into the Book of Abraham as facsimile number 1. A much more logical conclusion is that the scrolls caused Joseph Smith to ponder over what might lay inside them and to eventually pray about it, just as he prayed about which church to join that resulted in the first vision. Whether he prayed first or tried translating first, we don't know. But we do know that at one point he did try translating the hieroglyphics and labored over the task for 6 months, referring to the Bible to get clues. You can read about this in History of the Church, Period 1, Volume 2, page 286. If he had been a false prophet, he surely would have concocted a supposed translation immediately. Obviously frustrated in his attempts to decipher the scrolls, he surely must have inquired of the Lord. In answer, the Lord evidently sent Abraham himself to reveal the true record. We can conclude this because Joseph reported that Abraham did visit him. Documentation for the appearance of Abraham to Joseph Smith is found in the documentary History of the Church, Volume 2, page 380, 381, Journal of Discourses 2165, and page 94. The story of him praying over the papyri is called the catalyst theory, or in other words, the stimulus that caused him to pray to God over the question. Using this tack, you could also say the fact that each church in Joseph Smith's day claimed to be the true church. Those were a catalyst that caused Joseph Smith to go to the grove to pray about it. Or his wife's complaint about smelly tobacco was a catalyst that resulted in the word of wisdom. So the critics are justified in asking why, then, does the facsimile number 1, which was part of the Chandler collection, appear with what they called the sacred text. Joseph Smith supposedly received it from Abraham. The answer is that it and the facsimiles were merely visual aids. They really weren't sacred. That's why they were on display in Joseph Smith's home. The gold plates were sacred. That's why they were never on display. This is consistent with the Apostle Paul, who, as recorded in Acts chapter 17, who claimed that the altar to the unknown God was actually a representation of the true God. No doubt the builders of the altar had no idea of who the true God was. Also, the bread of the sacrament of the Lord's Supper represents the flesh of our Savior, and the water represents his blood. In the same way, Joseph Smith described the figures in the facsimile only as representations, not as an actuality. Thanks for watching. There's much more about the Book of Abraham in upcoming episodes. Don't miss them. And remember, as the hospital warns, call, don't fall.